Welcome to Hidden Gems Tech Donations for Faith-Based Organizations. My name is Becky Wiegand, and I'm the Webinar Program Manager here at TechSoup Global. And I've been with the organization for about 6 years, and prior to that worked for 3 small nonprofits over the course of a decade in Washington, D.C. and here in Oakland, California. So I've been in the situation of having to try to find technology and make decisions on technology for a small office with no tech support and no real IT staff or expertise. Also joining us today is Patrick Duggan, who is the Digital Marketing and Product Marketing Manager here at TechSoup. And he has a breadth of experience on product marketing and knows a lot about our donation programs inside and out, and will be helping us highlight some of our hidden gems that we'll be discussing today. You'll also see on the back end assisting with chat Ali Bezdikian, who is an interactive events and video producer here at TechSoup. And she'll be there to help you with any tech problems and flag those questions that you ask. And we will try to get through as many as we can today. If we don't have the opportunity to answer them live and it's something that we can have our client services help with, we may be able to forward to them to get those questions answered after the fact. A look at our agenda. We will be doing a quick introduction of TechSoup, since a lot of this webinar will be about the different donation programs available today. We want to make sure you're familiar with us. We'll do a couple of polls so that you can help guide us on where you'd like to be guided during today's webinar. We want to make this the most useful we can for you. We'll hear a couple of testimonials from faith-based organizations and churches who've used our donation programs and received products already. We'll talk a little bit about eligibility and restrictions so that you understand the differences between the different programs and which ones you may or may not be eligible to receive. And then we'll highlight a handful of product donation programs that are in our catalog of the many that are available. And we'll have time for Q&A a little bit throughout, and then of course at the end as well. So who is TechSoup? We are a 501c3 nonprofit, and we're working toward the day when every nonprofit, charity, church, foundation, what have you, can access and use the technology resources available to them to the best of their abilities and to help meet their missions. So we've been around since 1987, and we've served more than 200,000 charitable organizations in more than 60 countries around the world. We are constantly striving to expand our donation programs to offer new tech donations and services, including things like consulting for those small organizations that may not have any tech staff and need help with consultants. We've also added newer offerings like Windows 8.1 and QuickBooks 2014. Now there's a huge range of products available, all found at TechSoup.org, and not all of them are available to everybody. And so we'll talk a little bit about why that is in a few minutes. But before we do so, I want to get an idea of who you are and what you've come here today that's most important to you, so we can help guide this webinar to serve your needs. So go ahead and click on your screen. Is your organization already registered with TechSoup that you're aware of? And it's okay to say you don't know. This just helps us get an idea of what to focus most of our attention on today, or maybe not focus any of our attention on. So I'll give a few seconds for everybody to weigh in by clicking on those buttons. And it looks like we have about 60% almost that are already registered, and another good chunk that are not for sure, and 13% aren't sure, and that's okay. So it looks like the majority are registered. Now this doesn't ask whether you know anything about our programs, but the fact that you're registered is a great start. And so maybe we'll assume that many of you are registered for the purposes of our tour today, and we can talk about and maybe show things a little bit differently because of that. And now let's look at what would you most like to cover today. So those of you who are already registered probably won't be clicking on that first button, but feel free to do so if you'd really like to see how to get started and get those donations. And then let us know donation and eligibility restrictions, which programs are available to you. We'll definitely spend the majority of our time, I think, on that. And if there are other things you'd like us to talk about, feel free to comment in the chat window. Let us know what you are most wanting to hear from us today. We are at your disposal. for the next 53 minutes. So it looks like 90% want to know about those donation programs, and feel free to chat in the window and let us know if there are specific programs you're really interested in so we can hopefully spend a little bit of time on them. We may not get to all of them because there are so many, but we can do our best to get through some of the top ones. And then donation and eligibility restrictions would be number 2 on the list. So that's great. One last question before we move on. And this is something that will help us talk about eligibility a little bit. So it's a little bit of a complicated question. So is your primary mission that you are a church, synagogue, mosque, temple, place of worship? Go ahead and click that one if it is. Is your primary mission that you are missionary services or activities, or an actual mission, or a Bible camp? Is your primary mission that you are a seminary or a religious training institution or school or a publisher? Or are you a secular service organization like a food bank or a Habitat for Humanity or a domestic violence shelter, or any number of services that often faith-based organizations can be motivated by faith but provide a direct service that serves anybody regardless of their faith. So go ahead and click on these links because this also helps us. And we're getting some people responding in the chat who've clicked on that other, saying that they are a church school K through 8, and others saying a Christian school. Let's see, who else? Resource Center for Churches, probably closest to a seminary or educational institution. So it looks like quite a few religious schools. I would also kind of include that with the seminary or school institution. Faith-based arts school, primarily dance. Nonprofit helping churches. So I'm just reading some of these responses. St. Michael's High School. Great. So this is helping us, and let me go ahead and look at some of these results. So more than half of our participants today are a church, an actual religious place of worship. So that's helpful for us to know. And then a good chunk are either other, who may, and those other could be mental health care agency, which Tom just chatted into us, or providing some of those other services that I was mentioning. And so the reason I bring this up is that eligibility is an interesting topic, and it's a little bit complicated, and it can get a little hairy. And so we want you to think about this whole process of accessing donations through TechSoup, much like you would apply for a grant, and that these are in-kind gifts, in-kind donations or grants from a whole host of donor partners, ranging from Microsoft to Cisco to Adobe to Symantec to Bloomerang to CauseVox, to all of these different organizations that are in our catalog. And they get to set the parameters by which they donate. And so I want to invite Patrick Duggan, my co-presenter here today, onto the line to help us talk a little bit about this. And then I'm going to go ahead and share my desktop in a moment and show you a little bit about eligibility, because the difference between the answers you have on the screen can make all the difference in which donations you're eligible to receive. So welcome to the program. We're happy to have you, Patrick.
Thank you, Becky. It's good to be here with everyone today. So the way that our donation programs work at TechSoup is multifaceted. They're not actually our donation programs. TechSoup operates philanthropic programs on behalf of a series of donor partners and discount providers. And as part of our role in bringing these programs to the nonprofit and charitable sector, we work with the partners to understand what they want to do with philanthropy. What normally happens is that we try to make sure their programs are as open to everyone as possible. But the criteria for all the different programs on our site are set by our partners. So how that plays out with this group is that there's a very, very broad definition of what a faith-based organization is. A faith-based organization, like Becky was just covering, could be a church or synagogue. It could be a Habitat for Humanity and building homes. It could be a food bank. It could be someone working in legal services. When you're registering for our programs on TechSoup, it's important that you make sure you're in the type that closest reflects what your actual mission is, because that's going to give you the broadest donation eligibility. And our account management group is happy to work with you on that if you have questions on it.
Great. That helps, I think, give a basic overview. I want to go ahead and share my desktop. And so it should take just a moment for it to load on your screen. And I'm going to go ahead and show where you can check which programs you're eligible for or to request donations initially. And so feel free to chat into us if at any time you find that it's moving too quickly or you can't see what's on my screen. So you'll find that I am at the TechSoup.org homepage, and that should be what you're seeing on your desktops. So let us know in the chat if you're not. And when you're at the TechSoup.org homepage, those of you who are already registered, it's a good idea to just be logged in up here if you are. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. If you're not already registered with TechSoup, then it's a great opportunity to click this button to join up here in the top right and sign yourself up. There's no cost for joining TechSoup, and there's lots of benefits that come with it. So I'm going to go ahead and just log myself in. And you can see I'm logged in representing a test organization on neighborhood crime prevention that I just made up one day. So you should see your organization's name there. If you're requesting donations on behalf of multiple organizations, maybe you have a branch of organizations, or maybe you work on technology for churches and you represent a bunch of them, you always want to make sure that you're representing the right one up in this top area. So I'm logged in, and I want to go ahead and check which products I'm likely to be eligible for. And so down here on this left side under Get Products and Services, you can scroll right on down to check your eligibility. You can do this without being logged in. So you don't have to be a member of TechSoup or have joined anything to do this. It helps if you've already done it because all of your information would already be in our system. And so because I'm already logged in, I can go ahead and check any one of my test organizations. So I'll choose Youth Are Awesome because they are. And that'll be my test organization that I'm looking at today. And because I'm already logged in, it shows me all of the different programs that my organization, Youth Are Awesome, is eligible to request donations from. Now, at any given time, I may have already requested the donations from that program for a given year or whatever the parameters are. So it doesn't mean I necessarily can get it today, but it means I'm likely eligible to request from these programs. Now, if I log back out, I can go ahead and do that one more time just to check eligibility again. And this time it gives me a quiz because it doesn't have all of my organization info in there. And so this quiz is a simple form. You don't need to have your employer ID number or any forms on you. You just need to have a basic understanding of your organization's mission and budget. So let's say we're a 501c3 nonprofit, and if you're not a C3 nonprofit or one of these other categories, a C3 public library or a public library in the IMLS database or a foundation, then you're not likely to be eligible to participate in our program. So that's one thing to note right off the bat. But if you are a C3 nonprofit, and then you can check your state. So we'll say that we're in Connecticut. And this is where the org types and subtypes becomes really important. And these are not just made up by TechSoup. These are the IRS's NTEE codes that they use for their tax purposes. And so some of them are a little vague sounding or maybe somewhat obscure. And I can show you where to see more about these and what those designations mean in just a moment. But let's say I select religious activities because maybe that's the primary mission of my organization. If I'm a church, it's religious activities. Maybe though if I'm a domestic violence shelter that happens to be mission-based, so maybe we are faith-based in our work, but that the primary services we provide are shelter for women and children and families who need it, then I might want to select something different. So this is where it's really important to pay attention to these categories. So since most of you registered saying that you are a church or a place of worship, I'll go ahead and select religious activities. And then subtype. Now this is where I can select which of these different types of religious activities I'm involved with. So I am a church or synagogue, etc., or I do all of these other things. So I'm going to select church and synagogue. And then I'm going to put in what my roundabout annual budget is. So I'll say our annual budget is $200,000 with no commas. And then I'll check my eligibility. And this is now where you can see this whole list of donation programs for which my organization is likely eligible to receive donations. So I hope that helps answer some of the eligibility questions, and we'll go through more a little bit later on this as we look at different donation programs. But since we're on this page and we can see all of these cool programs, why don't we go ahead and get started with looking at some of these hidden gems that we've talked about. So I think we wanted to look at the biggest program that's newly available to nonprofits who are registered as churches and religious organizations is Microsoft. It's not exactly a hidden gem because it is a large program, but it is a new program. So we want to make sure that you're all aware of the fact that since September of 2013, that churches and faith-based organizations are now eligible to receive Microsoft donations through our program, which is a huge win because their program is the largest donation program in our catalog, and they give the most. And they are ubiquitous software that people use day in and day out in most offices around the world. So we're really pleased that we were able to help expand it to faith-based organizations. So I'm going to invite Patrick back on and see if he wants to talk a little bit about the different things that are available in the Microsoft program.
Thanks. Microsoft is one of our major donors. Over the last 10 years, they've donated hundreds of millions of dollars in software and other grants to the nonprofit sector, and they make almost their entire catalog of software available for donation to the sector. So that's everything from Microsoft Office software, which is the backbone of most nonprofits, to Windows 8, to server software, other Office productivity tools, mapping software. We have a lot of stuff in the catalog, and I really encourage people to go through and see the full breadth of what's there and what's available to them. Microsoft also offers Office 365 to faith-based organizations. Office 365 is not available directly on the TechSoup website, but if you go to our search bar and search for Office 365, you'll be taken to all of the resources we have around it and instructions on how to go to Microsoft to get Office 365. One more thing to mention about the Microsoft program. For those of you who have been using Windows XP in the past, if you're still on it, you probably know, and maybe some of you don't know, that Windows XP support ended recently. So we have upgrade products for Windows operating systems available. And we'll be touching on this later, but TechSoup also operates a refurbished computer program that most everyone is eligible for. And most all of our refurbished computers come with Windows 7, Office 2010, and antivirus software already installed.
Thank you, Patrick. And so looking at this catalog page, just so people know where I'm moving around, if you go just to TechSoup.org/Microsoft, this is how you land on this general donation page. And you can see while Patrick was talking, I was pointing out some of the top products that are requested. So these are your more popular items that you may be wanting to come to us to request. And for example, if you went to Best Buy or Office Max and wanted to buy Microsoft Office Professional with the 10 different products that are part of that Office suite, I think your retail price would be around $400. And through TechSoup's program with Microsoft, they donate it for the bargain price of $32 for their admin fee. And this admin fee, just to explain a little bit about what these are, is that this is a percentage of the retail price, and so they vary depending on the retail cost of a product. And they range depending on our programs, because again we have all of these programs with all of these different donor partners, range somewhere from 4 to 10% of retail. Now there are some partners and programs that don't donate, they discount. And so those discounts can really be all over the map when it comes to how much it's discounted. That really depends so much on each program. But when looking at these Microsoft products, for example, if it's around $400 retail for Office Professional Plus with the 10 products, $32 admin fee is a fee that comes to TechSoup to help us run our programs and manage our eligibility restrictions engine and all of the complicated back-end systems that make all of this possible, because these companies want to have faith and trust that the donations that they're giving out are going to organizations that are actually eligible for them. And so building that trust takes a lot of technical expertise and time and skill. And then we also want to provide lots of things like all of the helpful articles that you see on the sidebar on all of our product pages, and blog posts and forum threads and webinars. So all of these resources are there. And again, we're a nonprofit, so this isn't money that we're making gobs of money off of by any means. But this admin fee is there so that we can provide all of these services. And so when you click through to the product catalog, you can see that under Microsoft's product catalog that you get these drop-downs. So just pay attention to the drop-downs around the site, because there are many of them depending on where you're at. And so right now we're in the drop-down looking at desktop application software, where you see the Office suite listed. But you can also look at those PC operating system upgrades, like if you need to get off of XP and onto Windows 8, you can do that. If you have operating systems that are either not legitimate, or maybe you receive donated machines and they have operating systems that you don't have the license for and you don't know who owns it or where it originated from, or maybe you're running on a home version of Vista or XP and you want to upgrade to a professional version, there is also this program that Microsoft offers called Get Genuine that allows a one-time ever in the life of your program, the life of your organization, an opportunity to get full operating systems, not just upgrades. So that's available. Server software licenses if you're running Macs and you need Mac software. So there are all of these drop-downs. And then there's one that's just for small organizations, where we've put together the software that's most likely going to be used by a smaller enterprise, not a larger business. So because there are so many products in the Microsoft catalog, we want to make sure that it's easy for you to find if you only need a handful of products to run your office successfully. So that's a bit about Microsoft. Now let's go ahead and browse to some of those other donor partners that we are eligible for. And one way to browse through our catalog pretty easily in this drop-down on the left is to browse by donor or provider. And so this shows the entire list of products in our catalog, or product donors in our catalog. These are not all necessarily ones that you're eligible for. So if you need that, it's best to refer back to that eligibility checklist that we did when we checked our eligibility earlier. So if we go back up to the donor or provider list, some of the other ones we wanted to highlight today in our Hidden Gems overview, the next one on our list was Mobile Beacon, right over here. So these are all alphabetical and you can click to them easily. Before I click through on this, one other way to browse our catalog that's pretty handy is by solution. So if you're coming to our site and you're really looking for some technology to help you with donor and grant management, you can click on this link and it will take you to a page that has not only product donations available, but also has articles, blog posts, webinars, any resources that we've compiled to help you know how to choose the best options for your organization's needs. So these are different categories that we've pulled out that we know are sort of common tech areas and solution areas that people come looking for. You can also look by organization type. And so by organization type, if you are in here as a religious organization, you click on that, it will take you to a page that's been sort of tailored together to include programs that we know that religious organizations are eligible to request. So some of these are highlighted here. And there's also things like articles, like what TechSoup offers faith-based organizations. And that's an article that will talk a little bit about the different benefits and programs available to you. So, and it also has links to all of these additional programs you may be eligible to request donations from. And one other thing before I leave this page is that this list here, when I mentioned the org types and subtypes earlier, if you click through on this list that says find a list of mission types, this is our org types and subtypes categories. And this helps describe a little bit more. It lists out the different types and subtypes that you may find in a given category. And that might help make it a little easier for you to select what really makes the most sense for your organization. Again, if you are primarily, your mission is to do a direct service like building houses and for Habitat for Humanity, you may find that you really don't fit under religious activities as much as you would fit under human services, and I think there is actually a building, like housing section that you could be under. And that might change the eligibility for different programs depending on those categories. If you feel like you've registered and maybe you're not under the right category for your organization, you'll need to contact our client services and we can help you fix that. So let's go back to that Browse by Donor or Provider section. And now I'm going to go ahead and pull up Mobile Beacon and invite Patrick back to the line to tell us a little bit about the Mobile Beacon program as one of our hidden gems to highlight today.
Mobile Beacon is a really cool donor partner on our site. Mobile Beacon is a social enterprise. They were started by a nonprofit, and their focus is on expanding high-speed Internet access for the nonprofit sector, for the educational sector. And they do that through offering a 4G service. They've partnered with the Clear network, and they offer 4G devices which include modems, portable USB hotspots, mobile hotspots. So they're really, really good for organizations who just need one or two connections, or for organizations that have people on the go. I myself have a Mobile Beacon hotspot that I use when I'm traveling to charity conferences and things like that. Mobile Beacon also is very invested in the field of digital literacy and in expanding broadband access to communities that don't currently have it. So if you're an organization that's working on expanding broadband for job training, other things, Mobile Beacon is also working at the policy and educational level to help with that. One thing with this program, they do a lot of good work. We encourage you to go to their program page and look at the Mobile Beacon coverage area before you request donations. Their company has been diligently expanding their 4G access across the country, but you want to make sure that you have it already in your area before requesting from this program.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I just pulled it up just to give an idea of where, of how you would look at what areas would be covered. And this is a program that has been extended to TechSoup staff as well. So I've been looking at it a lot lately to see, could I use this in my home for my family and not have to use a big company that I'm not such a huge fan of. That's the only company that offers Internet in my area. I'm not naming any names. So this is where you can go and you can type in your street address and check to see if there's coverage, and this map would zoom right in on your neighborhood so you could see if there's coverage. And so it's a great option. We also have a product demo. So there's a USB device, there's a hotspot. So there's different types of devices that you can get depending on what your needs are. So it's a great program to look at if you're looking for low cost, high quality access to the Internet and you want to expand that to your staff. So that's one highlight. Let's go ahead and move on to one other. We're going to zip through some of these just so that we have time to cover quite a few. We're going to look at Teespring next, another hidden gem in our catalog. And to do that, I'm opening up the page now. And again, I'd love to have Patrick give us a little overview of what the Teespring program is all about.
Teespring is a great program for those organizations who are doing fundraising events and team fundraising events especially. So Teespring lets you create custom t-shirts that people can have printed to whatever sizes they want, and they enable you to do really, really cost-effective fundraising campaigns because the cost of printing the t-shirts isn't actually triggered until you meet your fundraising goal. So if you want to try to sell 3,000 t-shirts for a fundraising campaign, there's no cost to you until your goal is actually met. And Teespring, for those of you who take advantage of the program through TechSoup, they offer design consulting services to help you come up with even more sophisticated shirts. And that's an add-in for TechSoup members only. And Teespring is great for, like I said, team fundraising events. Like if you're doing a Relay for Life and you want to make and sell shirts for it, they're really fantastic. And it's a great idea to go and check out their site and see some of their success stories.
Great. Everybody loves a cute t-shirt. And I would imagine it would be a great thing to do if you run a Bible camp or vacation Bible camp or have an annual event that you want to raise money around. So it's a great opportunity to leverage the different offerings from companies like Teespring to help raise that money for you. So next on our list is CauseVox. I'm going to go ahead and pull that up on the list of donor programs. And again, we're highlighting just a handful today, but you saw that list on that eligibility check showed a lot of different options available. So definitely take some time to look at the others as well. So Patrick, can you tell us something about CauseVox, please?
At this point in time, a lot of people have probably heard about crowdfunding. And CauseVox is just that. They are a crowdfunding platform that makes their services available to TechSoup members. So if you want to build out a fundraising campaign, a peer-to-peer campaign where maybe you're trying to raise funds for your school, CauseVox can help you develop a campaign and then spread it out among your peers. And they're really great at facilitating your organization's story and getting it out on your own custom little web page. It's a fantastic program for those organizations who are looking to branch out in their fundraising beyond the typical year-end letter of appeal, or maybe selling, operating like an e-commerce store. CauseVox is a great way for you to expand the types of fundraising that you're able to do.
Great. And you can see on this page that there are two types of subscriptions listed here. And both of these are one-year subscriptions, and they do have a different transaction fee based on the different plans you get. And this is a transaction fee per transaction that you would make with a credit card, for example. So even if you use PayPal or some other company online to manage your credit card transactions, you're paying some type of transaction fee. Sometimes you pay a monthly service fee to your bank in addition to a transaction fee, depending upon the merchant account and how you have that set up. So it's a great option, and look at the different fees because one may make a lot more sense to you than the other. So paying the $186 admin fee for the year might make sense if you have a lot of transactions because you get that lower transaction fee. So definitely take some time to look at that. We also we have some content that we have in our resources section, which you can find up here in our articles and how-tos about credit card processing and different ways to select the plan that fits best for you. So if you're not sure how all of that works and which types of fees are the most likely to work best for the types of donations you receive, like maybe you receive 10 big $5,000 donations per year. Maybe you receive 100 $5 donations. And the difference between those two can make a big difference in your bank account at the end of the year depending upon which type of transaction fee setup you select. So keep that in mind when you're looking at these different programs, that the immediate price for the admin fee might be a little daunting, but it might make more sense depending upon the types of transactions and types of needs you have for your organization. So moving on from CauseVox, the next on our list to look at is eTapestry, which you'll notice here that there is no eTapestry listed here. and that's because eTapestry is a program offered by Blackbaud. So take note of that. If you're looking for a different product on our site and you don't see it listed here, it might not be under the product name, it might be under the donor name. So keep that in mind, and you can always use this search box up here if you need to, and it'll hopefully pop up that product name if you search for it. So let's go down to Blackbaud. And we will look here, and so we see a couple of different things, and I'm going to go ahead and just click through to eTapestry's Starter Package subscription and invite Patrick back onto the line to tell us about it.
eTapestry is a really good donor management tool if you're an organization that has about 1,000 or less funders. So if you have a small congregation, if you're a school that has under 1,000 funders, if you're a local Salvation Army chapter or Habitat chapter, a local Catholic Charities, and you yourself have 1,000 or less contact records, it's a really good system for you because it helps you track both your donors as well as your actual fundraising campaigns, and you can manage everything through your web browser. eTapestry is a cloud-based service. So yeah, for those of you who have 1,000 or less contacts, which is the vast majority of charitable faith-based organizations, this is a really good tool for you. If you're an FBO, if you're a church or synagogue and you're filling a stadium, we have a lot of other donor management tools too available that you can go to and see by browsing our site by solutions and looking for donor management.
That's great advice, yeah. And definitely you can see these related articles here on the side. Do you need a new donor management system? What types are there? These are great resources to help you evaluate sort of the types of donor management systems you might need and whether they'd work for your organization's needs or your church's needs. So definitely take some time to consider that before you dive in. And that goes for any technology, not just donor management systems. You want to make sure that you're making the best decision, and so do we, and that's why we provide these resources. So next on our list of hidden gems to highlight is Bloomerang. So right here on the list, Bloomerang. And while that pulls up, we'll go ahead and have Patrick come back on and tell us a little bit about what Bloomerang offers.
Bloomerang is a brand new partner here at TechSoup. They joined us about a month ago, and they're also an online donor management tool. So they're a great tool for organizations that have to manage a good amount of contacts. They're also available through a web-based interface, and they're very, very easy to use. They're great for reporting and donor retention. So if you're an organization that's actively trying to build a greater and greater fundraising base, this tool is really great to help you understand how your donors have worked with you in the past, maybe what some of their giving habits are, and it lets you print out some pretty fantastic reports so you can make smarter decisions around how to engage your donors, how to run fundraising campaigns. It's a good all-around tool for that.
Great. And while I'm on this page of Bloomerangs and looking at the subscription, I just want to point out that there are some things to look for on any product page that you're looking at. So one, is it available? Sometimes we'll have products on our site that will say out of stock, or maybe that's the only thing they'd say is out of stock or available. But you want to make sure that one, the product is available. And with something like Bloomerang, because it's a subscription to an online service, that's almost always going to be available unless they decide to no longer donate, which would be sad. You are also going to look at the admin fee. But then down here under the description area, you want to make sure that you're really looking through all of these details, what the capabilities are, what the benefits are, how you access the subscription, all of these details down here. You want to make sure that you're really taking some time to look through this. It's not always the most tantalizing information to read, but it's definitely useful to look at. And then system requirements, you see these other two tabs here. System requirements. Now this one, because it's an online service, you just need your browser and an internet connection, so that's pretty easy. rules and eligibility, this is the other area where again you'll see in detail the eligibility for the different programs. And we had somebody ask a question a few minutes ago about the discrimination clauses that are in many of the descriptions on our eligibility and restrictions pages. So I'm going to highlight that down here. So again, our donor partners can select that they want their donation to go to shelters and animal services and youth programs and nobody else. Or they can say we want these donation programs to go to everybody who's a nonprofit and no libraries, and anybody whose budget is more than $1 million a year cannot get this for this price. So they can set all of those parameters. Most of them also include these non-discrimination statements in their eligibility and restrictions pages. And these are pretty standard descriptions that you see all over the place. That you see it in housing and employment advertisement. So these are the standard anti-discrimination or non-discrimination disclosures. Somebody asked earlier, actually a couple of people asked, so what if our church does teach things that are maybe considered discriminatory by some groups around sexual orientation, for example? Now I don't think when you register your organization, we're not asking questions like that. We're not asking, do you teach X, Y, and Z in your school, or do you teach anything about one gender being superior to another, or anything like that. And I'm not implying that any of you do that either, but we don't ask those kind of detailed questions when you register. And it's very infrequent that we would be digging into anybody's day-to-day activities to determine if there was any kind of violation of this. Now if somebody's on the news in a big confrontation, then one of our donors may hear about it, and they might say, you know what, we don't actually want to donate to these people anymore. And that is actually part of the donation, that they can say, if they're, I don't think it's ever happened personally. I don't have any history of that ever happening. But if for any reason, so when you go through the process to request donations, for example, like if I was logged in and you could see the things in my shopping cart and I went through the process of requesting donations, there is an acknowledgement thing where I say, yes, I acknowledge that these donations are, that I am eligible to receive these through my organization. And I acknowledge that if this donor comes to me, if this corporate partner comes to me and says, we want you to write a little testimonial about how this has helped you, that yes, we will do that. Not all of the donors require that, but this is part of essentially the grant exchange that takes place through our site. So like an in-kind grant or any kind of grant application, you may have things that you need to deliver back. Now it happens very, very infrequently, and most of it is entirely voluntary, where maybe it's TechSoup that sends out an email and says, hey, participate in our contest and tell us your story of how these products have helped your organization. And you might say, hey, these have helped me a lot. I want to write in a little blurb. So that's about the extent that most organizations would ever contribute to that. So I just wanted to kind of address that since we were looking at the details on this page, because a couple of people did ask questions about it, and I hope that helps clear it up. So as we move on, we're going to open up to questions in just a couple of minutes, but I want to look at two more quick programs on our site. And this next one is refurbished computers. So for those of you who aren't looking necessarily for software or services, but maybe you need hardware. So we have a big program, our Refurbished Computer Initiative program, and I'm going to invite Patrick to tell us a little bit about that too.
The RCI program, the Refurbished Computer Initiative, is a program that we've been operating for a long time, and it's one of the programs that we are most proud of. We work with 3 different refurbishers around the country who take computers that are being turned over from companies that are refreshing or other sources, and they bring them back up to modern standards. They install the latest versions of Windows and Office. We outfit them with antivirus software, and they all come with a total worry-free 90-day warranty. The RCI program includes a lot of laptops, desktops of different tiers, so different speeds, different RAM. We have refurbished monitors. We have bundles of laptops, computers, and monitors. So we really invite you to go through the catalog, see what's there. You can browse computers by high tier. So if your organization is running some kind of more sophisticated photo editing or video editing software, you might need something from the high tier category. If you just have a couple of office computers that are maybe getting older and you want to replace them, then the middle tier might be something more along your lines. And keep checking back with our catalog. The RCI program is really dependent on the inventory that we're able to get from our refurbisher partners. So the catalog changes pretty frequently. And if you're not already, if you subscribe to our newsletter, the new product alert will let you know when we have catalog updates for RCI.
Thank you, Patrick. And yeah, we do have a variety of products kind of cycling through, and it does depend, but all of these are factory refurbished. And at the end of their life, they also have a take-back program, so you don't have to worry about disposing of them in any sort of fashion. You just put them in the envelope and we take them back and refurbish them or dispose of them as needed. Patrick mentioned our newsletter, so I want to just point out where to find that. So up in the top left, you can subscribe to our newsletters. And we have a couple of different ones available. By the Cup is weekly, and that includes a lot of themes more than products. So that is mostly looking at things by solution. So if you need help with mobile technologies or you need help with fundraising, we might have a theme that includes articles and webinars and products that are related to that. New Product Alert is monthly, and that one comes out primarily focused on the different products that have become available recently in the catalog and the expansion of that we're always trying to do. And then TechSoup for Libraries is specifically for libraries in our community who are using our services, and they have some specific needs. So we like to highlight that one for them as well. The last program I want to look at quickly before we open up to questions is not a program so much for you, but it's a program more for serving your community. Because we have a wrapped audience of people who are directly connected with people who often are hungry and need meals, we want to make sure that you know about this new addition. And so under Caravan Studios is a program of TechSoup's, an initiative of ours. And they are working to develop apps that directly serve community problems and help solve community problems. And so this one that I want to highlight today is called Range. And it is intended to help youth find summer meals. So we know that there are summer meal programs that are implemented mostly by the federal government, but also by state governments, and local communities do as well. And so they've figured out a way to compile the data that's available from all of those different data sources of where these food sites are for summer meal programs to ensure that kids have access to them, and that service providers like community leaders, like people who are working in churches, people who are working in libraries and community centers, can help refer kids to those programs throughout the course of the summer so that they don't go without meals, because it's only 1 in 5 kids that currently receives the summer meal programs of the 5 children that get the free or reduced lunches during the school year. So we want to make sure that you're aware of this. It's a free app that you can download to your Android, Apple, or Windows phone device. And you can type in an address and you can pull up all of the places where kids can get free lunches in your area. You can easily text that information or email it or just write it down for a kid in your neighborhood or a child in your parish who might be hungry. So we want to make sure that you know how to find that. I'll go ahead and just pull up the Caravan site so you can see a little bit more about Range. But this is a free app, not so much a service for you, but a service to help feed your community. And it also has information about the National Hunger Hotline. So if you serve kids or have that vacation Bible camp in the summer and you have kids that are experiencing hunger or food instability, this is a great opportunity to connect them to the resources in their neighborhood. So I'm going to go ahead and jump out of sharing my screen so I can see the questions that have come in. And while I do that, I'm going to just plop up one of these testimonials. So we didn't have an opportunity to hear from the churches in our community today because we just weren't able to find a speaker quickly enough to join us. But I wanted to share a couple of examples of how the donation programs through TechSoup have helped people in church communities and faith communities serve their audiences and their patrons. So here's one example from Faith in Action Outreach Ministries. And here's another from, this is a homeless and family services organization in Portland, but they also consider themselves faith-based. So that's just something to think about, and we hope that those of you who have already received donations through TechSoup, that you'll be willing to share your stories the next time we reach out asking for them, because the more we can share the impact of the programs, the more we're able to get our donor partners to expand the availability of their donations to your community as well. I'm going to go ahead and start with some of the questions that we see in the queue. And let's see, so we have Al asking, I don't see an activity there for church associated with other organizations, some other religions, and some secular. So I think he's talking about the list of org types and subtypes maybe. And feel free to chat into us if that's not the case. So if you are maybe affiliated with another organization, if you're independently registered as a 501c3, you should be selecting the type and subtype of that C3. So even if you're affiliated with a bigger thing, you want to register as your own nonprofit separately. If you are under a fiscal sponsorship, for example, of a bigger umbrella organization, and you aren't a registered C3 on your own, then you would need to register with their C3 status. And so you'd want to be checking with their office and making sure that if that organization is, they may already be in our system registered. And so any donations that you would be receiving would be under their account and with their org type and subtype. I hope that answers the question. Let's see, so William asks, we operate a private Christian school as a ministry. From a legal standpoint, the church is responsible for the school. Can donations we acquire through TechSoup under the church's account be used by our Christian school as well? It's a little complicated. And I don't know, Patrick, if you feel more comfortable answering this one, but schools are often not eligible directly through TechSoup's programs. K through 12 schools often have their own donation programs through some of these companies. So let me have Patrick jump on and he can add to that.
Yeah, I started responding to this in the chats also. So it's a good question, and this is an area where TechSoup's programs get pretty nuanced. So it really comes down to the primary focus of what you're doing and who is requesting the donations. In this case, if you're primarily a church and you operate a small school, or if they share an office but the primary organization and its mission is a church, then you can request donations as that church and use them in your office. If you're primarily a school, and if the IRS might recognize you and your mission as a school and not anything else, then it would behoove you to register as an educational organization. The same thing, like if you're operating a youth camp as your primary mission, but you're also partly affiliated with a church, it's important to focus on what the primary mission of your nonprofit or charity is. And that's usually how we recognize your eligibility for programs. And again, if you have questions about your specific eligibility in this area, I encourage you to call or email our customer service team, and they'll be able to provide you with clarity in your specific circumstance.
Yeah, that's really true. And that eligibility check that I mentioned and showed earlier is something you don't have to be logged in to do. You can go through that 20 times in a row if you want to. If there are two different categories that you really feel like you could equally fall under because your mission does leadership development for youth and church-related activities, and you compare the two and you think, boy, we really could fit under either, then definitely look at what the eligibility access would grant you and what the differences between the eligibility would be, because it can make a big difference. And there are some organizations that legitimately could fall under a number of categories. So take the time to do it, but we're trusting that when you register that you are registering in good faith and that you're doing so in reflection of what your real mission is. So we want to make sure that that's maintained, because again, the expansion of donation programs really does come down to the donor partners trusting that we are delivering these products through our system appropriately. Let's see, we have a question asking, we get 10 free seats through Salesforce, and you've opened my eyes to several other programs for which we're eligible. Is Intuit ruling out all faith-based organizations? Well, I'm going to bring this back to Patrick to respond to. But again, every organization and donor is different. So go ahead, Patrick.
So this is sort of a nuanced answer. It depends on what your faith-based organization's primary mission is. So right now, Intuit, their programs are not open at the moment to dedicated churches, mosques, synagogues, evangelical groups. We work with our partners like Intuit to expand their eligibility, and whenever we are able to expand program eligibility, if you're registered with TechSoup as a religious organization, it will email you, say, hey, Intuit's opened up, or this other program's opened up. If you're a faith-based organization but your primary focus is something else like working in the community on development or operating a food pantry, we recommend that you double check the eligibility for your specific mission area, since faith-based organizations it's a pretty broad term, and when you're registering and checking your eligibility for programs, it's really important that you're looking at your specific charity's mission.
Absolutely. So I want to go ahead and wrap us up since we are at the top of the hour and just show a few additional resources where you can find more information. So the religious organizations page, now these aren't clickable on this platform at the moment, but you'll get this slide deck in a little bit as well, and you can click all of these links to take you to the religious organizations page, our article about what TechSoup offers faith-based organizations, a blog post that includes more than just TechSoup's donation programs and the availability of technology resources for faith-based orgs, and then a blog post that was published this morning that has some of this same information highlighting some of these hidden gem programs that we highlighted today. Additionally, we want to make sure that you know how to access our eligibility quiz and how to sign up for newsletters, and can read through the product donation FAQ for any additional questions, can find upcoming events, and can reach TechSoup support for any questions that are specific to your organization's registration. I'd like to invite you to join us for any upcoming webinars that might be of interest to you. We have a series on mobile that is continuing on July 10th, and then a new series on mobile that's specifically for libraries on the 16th and 30th of July, and then a couple of webinars that are of interest to anybody who sends emails and may be trying to raise funds with emails, and anybody who's trying to captivate their audience with their website. So please join us for those as well. Thank you so much for joining us today, Patrick, and sharing your expertise. Thank you all for participating and asking such wonderful questions. We hope that this has been useful for you to be able to take back as just the tip of the iceberg of the different types of programs available and donations of technology that can help you better meet your mission. Thank you also to Allie, who was helping on the back end throughout. And lastly, thank you to our webinar platform, ReadyTalk, for making the use of this platform available so that we can provide these webinars for you on a weekly basis. We hope you'll join us again, and take a moment once this closes to complete the post-event survey so that we can continue to improve our webinar programming. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a terrific day. Bye-bye.